Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 382, a day early as we're getting set for the 4th of July holiday. Our company has off on Friday, so we will wrap this thing up today for the week. We will talk Brewers Reds. The Brewers broke Kirk Herbstreit. That's a sentence. If you didn't see that on Twitter, college football analyst Kirk Herbstreit was broken by the Brewers this week. He was broken by Joey Ortiz. We will talk about the 3 games so far. We will set up today, which is a tremendous matchup of 2 young aces in Jacob Misiorowski and Chase Burns. I am going to set the over-under on pitches today over 100 miles per hour at 100.5, and I think I'd take the over. They're both flamethrowers. Burns a little less than Miz, but this is going to be a lot of fun at American Family Field this afternoon, and this series has been so far, so we will talk about that. We will talk about some Bucks news. We have the Boguliu Markovic boob jug is in the fold on a 4-year deal. That was signed yesterday. We do also have Ousmane Dieng signing a contract. There's a lot of big NBA news in general. LeBron James is coming back, but not going to the Lakers. And then the Celtics, who were trying to put Jaylen Brown into a trade for Giannis, I think they burned that bridge by dangling him, and then they were forced into trading him to Philly, and the package they got back, woof. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Ousmane Dieng and Markovic and how the Bucks roster is coming together. I also have an email. I don't know if there's any way to get to the bottom of what this emailer is trying to say, if we can verify whether this is accurate or not. But we will talk a little bit about, real quickly with that email, about Adrian Griffin's tenure in Milwaukee. And does it stand out in the history of head coaches in North American sports as kind of an outlier when you compare his record to the fact that he had never had a job prior and probably is never going to get a job again? We'll go over that and the World Cup. It's soccer, Greg. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. Hit time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's and there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, on a pinnacle ball, throws it down.
Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it.
It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Welcome in Thursday morning. Yeah, we have a company-wide day off on Friday, recognizing that as the day off because it falls on a Saturday this year. Technically, if you read some American history, if you read John Adams by David McCullough, bleh, that's my John Adams impersonation, but if you read that book, a lot of the founding fathers thought that today, July 2nd, would be the day that we all celebrated and there'd be parades and fireworks because today was the vote to break away from Great Britain. And then on the 4th of July, only 2 people signed the Declaration of Independence. We talked about this. We did some kind of American history trivia on the B93 morning show this week. On the 4th of July, only 2 people signed the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July. One of them, Herbie Hancock. And the second one, who I never heard of before in my life, his name is Charles Thompson. We talked about this on the air. And I said, coming out of trivia, I think our question was how many people actually signed the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July. It's 2. It's John Hancock, and it is this guy, Charles Thompson, who is lost into the annals of history. And I just said, when you get this big history moment, this watermark in the world, it is interesting. There are so many people involved in the Continental Congress and the representatives, and we all learn about John Hancock, and we learn about John Adams and George Washington and Paul Revere. I mean, there's these names that stick out, but inevitably, when you have just a ton of people that are a part of this large movement, there are important people that always get forgotten, and I read that in the morning on Wednesday when we did trivia about it. And then I ended up reading the Wikipedia bio of Charles Thompson, an Irish-American immigrant. He was the secretary for the Continental Congress for 15 years. I think he was the only secretary, old Chuck Thompson, old Chucky boy. And then he was responsible, after everything was signed, for reading, I guess, in Philadelphia, the Declaration of Independence to the people, to making his rounds, to reading it out loud to the town folk. So he had a pretty important role, but it's always interesting to me when you look back at history, there are always those people in those roles that kind of get forgotten, and I just thought, I've never heard of Charles Thompson in my life. Who's all Chuck Thompson? That was a real son of a gun, but he was a big part of it. But yeah, if you read any of those books from that era that chronicle the revolution, a lot of the founding fathers thought that today, because today was the vote to break away, everybody thought, well, that's July 2nd is going to live on forever. If this works out, and it's a 50-50 proposition at best, if this works out, that will be the day that people will celebrate, July 2nd. It'll echo through history. And it turns out to be July 4th. And then nobody else signed the Declaration until August 3rd. And I don't even think Britain found out until like 1777. That's another funny part if you read about that era. It's not like you could just fax Great Britain or shoot them an email or something like that, even call them. You had to put the Declaration on a boat, and who knew? If that boat knew where it was going, it would sink, it would have cholera. There's all kinds of things that could have happened. A cow could have eaten it. There are a lot of things that could have happened to that en route. And then it wasn't until months later that King George was going through the mail, the Publishers Clearinghouse, and the utility bills and said, what is this letter from the colonies? Oh, they're probably wishing me a happy birthday or something, you know? It took a long time for that information to kind of matriculate its way over there. That is the most fascinating part of even the Ken Burns documentary of the American Revolution. My wife and I just got done watching that. 6 episodes or 5 episodes. They're long, though, like a Ken Burns doc. And they're all, I think, 2 hours or 2+ hours. And maybe we've talked about this on the podcast before. The most difficult thing to me about a Ken Burns doc, as much as I love the Ken Burns docs, the baseball doc, the jazz doc, Civil War, I think his Civil War documentary is one of the greatest documentaries ever made. The problem is it's a slower pace than we're used to now. And the narration on these is so soothing that even though I'm interested in the topic he's talking about, I can't make it more than 21 minutes before I'm dozing off. And I'll catch myself and think, oh, now I'll rewind in a minute because I want to hear what was said. And I think it's interesting information. But it's just so soothing and slow paced that by the time I'm 15 to 20 minutes into it, I'm dozing off. But we watched that all the way through. I would highly recommend it. But it is funny when you look back at just the way that messages went back and forth in that era. In the Civil War, at least, you kind of had the telegraph, so there were ways to get information out there quickly. But it is always interesting. John Adams, yeah, he was in Paris trying to negotiate, trying to get some funding for the war, and he didn't hear from anybody for like 7 months. He had no idea if the revolution was still going on. Are we winning? We had no idea. That is one of the more intriguing parts of the whole deal. But we are heading into 4th of July weekend, so we are off tomorrow, and we observe the 4th on a Friday. So we'll do the podcast today, of course. Now, without further ado, let's hop into finally a cashed ticket on Team USA. We did it. We finally did it. Now, I was celebrating after the win against Australia, and everybody else saying, John, I don't think you understand. I said, no, I get it. I just love soccer. I know I haven't won a bet yet. That's what I said after the Australia win. I know what's next up. I just celebrate the game, the good game, the beautiful game. So they finally punched their ticket to the round of 16, which was the bet I put down 2 weeks ago, as they take down Bosnia-Herzegovina, I think is how you say it. Maybe not. And they win 2-0 last night. Now, I was kind of in between the Brewer game and the soccer match we got to play since we're talking soccer.
Yeah, we're down 2 points. Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
I was kind of back and forth. Now, Flo Balogun, I think is his name. He scored a goal initially, and then that was ruled offsides. Then he scores a goal minute 45 right before the halftime break, and that put the U.S. up 1-0. Now, he gets a red card. I was watching the Brewer game during this red card. Again, I do not know anything about soccer. I don't know anything about it. To me, and my very, very rudimentary knowledge, it didn't look like anything that he did on that play justified a red card. A yellow card. I mean, you step on a guy's ankle, you knock him over. Okay, free kick, red card, whatever. Or yellow card. He doesn't deserve a red card. I mean, a red card maybe, but definitely doesn't deserve a red card. Certainly he could have gotten a red card, though. Yellow card, free kick. I mean, whatever the stipulations are there. That did not look to me. Red card is ejection and it's suspension for the next game, it sounds like. So this would be like if you were in an NBA Finals game or something and a key player like Flo Balogun, even though, again, I'm not well-versed, I just learned his name last night, and I might not even be saying it right. he seems to be, as a striker, a very important part of this team. So this would be like in Game 5 of the NBA Finals, LeBron James getting ejected on a flagrant 2 and then getting suspended for the next game. They never let that happen. So he gets a red card in minute 64. Now, also in soccer, which I kind of think I knew at some point but probably forgot over the years, when you have somebody get a red card and they get ejected, that person's gone. I mean, you can't replace him. You can't bring in a sub. So you're down. You're playing 11 on 10 the rest of the way. And that's at minute 64. So you're playing the majority of the second half down a man. And yeah, you're up by 1, but anything can happen. And then they get that free kick goal, just a sick goal. Who was it? It wasn't Freeman's kid. That's the only guy I know by name. And now I know Balogun. Malik Tillman. Unbelievable bend, top shelf goal, minute 82. And that gives you some breathing room. You're playing a man down. And you're going to get an all-out press toward the end of it. But you get that extra goal breathing room now, up 2-0. And then they survive 10 minutes of stoppage time. This is going to sound like a very ignorant American take, but I am very comfortable in that role. I will never understand, and I know there's dumb things in basketball and baseball. Soccer fans could point out a million dumb things about the sports I love too. I acknowledge that wholeheartedly. Why is, like my dad always used to say, why is a spike in football not intentional grounding? I don't know. I don't understand why they can't just stop the damn clock. We have the technology. You can stop the clock. I actually think a lot of the review stuff in soccer is way better and far more advanced than what we saw last night at the Brewer game when Garrett Mitchell slid across home plate, clearly safe, and was called out, and then called out again on review. I feel like soccer, from the little that I've watched, their reviews, their ways to check off sides, their ways to make sure the ball crossed the goal, it seems like they are very far ahead of the curve on that kind of stuff. But, you can stop the clock. The whole stoppage time concept, I guess I don't fully understand why we still do it, where you just keep the clock running the entire time, and then at the end of the first half, some referee who's keeping a secondary clock tries to figure out, well, we weren't playing for like 6 minutes, so we'll make up 6 minutes. And they did the same thing at the end of regulation, too. You can just stop the clock. It's right there. Just one button. You stop it, and you start it again. And they had 10 minutes of stoppage time at the end of yesterday's match. But they survived that, and they take it 2-0. Now, the Balogun thing in the postgame was a big piece of commentary. If you watched any of the post-match or the post-game review, is he going to be suspended? So now you are into the round of 16. They have not been to the quarterfinal round, the round of 8, since 2002. I vaguely remember that summer, getting set to go to college back in 2002 and watching those matchups. And they made it to the final 8 in 2002, lost there, all the way back in 1930, where there might have been only 16 teams to begin with. They made the Final Four. That's the best finish they've had in World Cup history. But the World Cup looked a lot different in 1930 than it does now. But that's the best finish in U.S. World Cup history. And they may have won back in the day in that era. I think they had a third-place game, and they may have won the third-place game. So that might be their best finish overall. But if they win on Monday, they get back to the round of 8 for the first time in 24 years. But they could be missing this striker who is a huge part of their team. I guess there is an appeals process. My buddies and I were joking on our text chain last night that somehow Trump needs to get involved in this, even though Trump is not a huge soccer guy, but he is a big America guy. And if he feels like we've been slighted in some way, could he get the DOJ involved or something like that? I saw somebody posted this. This is not real. And I had to check to make sure it was not real. But somebody put up a fake tweet that Trump would have tweeted out that it said, Flo Balogun, a truly wonderful player, was given a red card today that was so ridiculous, so unfair, that many people are calling it the worst call in the history of soccer. FIFA, a once great organization, has become a total disaster. I'm pleased to report that the leader of FIFA has been detained by the brave men and women of ICE, and he is on his way to El Salvadorian prison as we speak. We will not tolerate corruption on American soil. Make soccer great again. I had to verify to make sure that was not true. So there could be an appeal process. Some of my buddies who are much bigger soccer fans have said that they're in the history of the World Cup or the history of soccer, yes, you can appeal red cards and you can appeal the one-game suspension that accompanies it, but it is once in a very long while. It's a Halley's Comet situation. It doesn't happen often where that appeals process goes through and they actually let that guy play. We will see. I don't know how quickly they could hear some kind of appeal. Clearly, Team USA would love to have him, but it sounds like he might not be available for the Monday night matchup. They will take on Belgium on Monday night, which I feel like they played Belgium in an important game not that long ago. Might be wrong about that. Probably wrong about that. But that is Monday. What is the start time we have on that? Oh, I'm on baseball, Men's World Cup. Here we go. So are we going to get a U.S. if we get a U.S.-England final? What are all happening today? We've got Spain and Austria, Portugal, Croatia, Switzerland, Algeria today. And then Monday, we've got the U.S. and Belgium. Oh, 7 o'clock. Beautiful. And it's in Seattle. Last night's game was in San Francisco, but this will be in Seattle at Lumen Field again, the home of the Seahawks. 7 o'clock on Monday, you win that, and you were on to the quarterfinal round, and then who knows. So we did cash the plus 130 ticket. Let's just take a look here and see what we're at. What were we at when we were spitballing, putting a bet down on them to win the entire thing? I mean, we're a step closer now. I did see some commentary on ESPN this morning where they were talking about that the U.S. should be able to, not a guaranteed win, but they should be able to compete even if they don't have Balogun. They should be able to compete with Belgium on Monday and be right there to reach, let's just say to reach the final. If they reach the final game, boy, plus 1,100. Oh, I kind of like that. I kind of like that. So is the outright still 2,800? It can't be. It's 2,500 now. So 25 to 1 or 250 to 1 to make to actually win the World Cup. What is the semifinal? To reach the Final Four? Is that far-fetched? Plus 320? We're going to have to investigate this further today. I feel like we've got to make one more bet, right? I don't know that my World Cup betting can end there. Got to take some of that and get on a ride, like the Kramer clip when we play the intro for the gambling segment during football season. Well, you got a little ride. I think we've got to put something else down. What's quarterfinal? So this is just to win then. If they win on, this has got to be minus money. Now, minus 110 is kind of a 1-to-1. I don't hate that either. All right, we'll take a look at that, and we will update you on the Monday podcast. But yes, we cashed the plus 130 ticket. If you're following along, like we talk about, the 3 years we've done this, I'd have to go back and look exactly what they were. I think we were about 8 or 9 over 500 in football year one. We were like 15 over 500 with the futures bets hitting and the Josh Allen MVP in year two. We were 7 or 8 over 500 this year. Again, we had some big futures that hit. And now we have had the Knicks future win. We had the Game 6 or 7 Stanley Cup Finals. We had the 2 tickets on the Hurricanes. And now we've got the USA into the round of 16. Not the knockout round, the round of 16. Not out of group play. And that was at plus 130. It's been a nice run here in the last couple of weeks. But Team USA getting it done against Bosnia yesterday, a 2-0 final. Brewers Reds got the 4-game set, which concludes today. Got it underway on Monday, coming off those back-to-back losses against the Cubs. By the way, the Cubs are red hot. That was one thing you worried about coming out of that weekend set. Do you breathe life back into the Cubs? And it looks like they have. The Cubs have won all 3 games against the Padres at home this week. They beat them 23-3 last night. My God. Luckily, the Brewers have won all 3 of their games, so the lead in the NL Central remains 5.5 games, despite the Cubs being hot. Well, let's start on Monday. You were down in that game, kind of a meandering game. 3-0, got a decent start. Who was on the mound last on Monday? Oh, yeah, Gasser. He was fine. 5 2/3, 3 runs. We'll take that. 5 strikeouts. Kept them in the game. They were down 3-0, though. And I will say, as they went into the 6th inning that day, down 3-0, you lost back-to-back games against the Cubs Saturday, Sunday. I think at that point, the Cubs were winning their Monday game. And I wouldn't say I was getting nervous, but I would not say that. I would say it kind of felt like you had 2 tough losses, a gut punch loss Sunday. Up until the 6th inning, it really felt like they were sleepwalking through the game. They weren't. They were trying. I know. When you're watching your team and they're losing and they're not playing well, especially in baseball, that can be confused with not caring. You see that take a lot on social media when a team is down in the dumps. Oh, it looks like they don't even care. I'm sure they care. It just looks bad because when people are losing and not performing and not hitting the ball, it looks like they don't care because they're not succeeding in what they're trying to do. But rest assured, they are trying. They do care. They do care. They want to win. But it did have one of those meandering kind of games where we're not really hitting with runners in scoring position. Ellie De La Cruz hits a 2-run home run. We're down 3-0. God, if we lose today and the Cubs win, the lead's down to 4.5. And could this be a tipping point? See, I told you I wasn't freaking out. I told you. I'm cool, calm, collected. But in the 6th inning, they get a couple of runs on the board. Rake Bauer's RBI. Frelick walked to the bases loaded, made it 3-2. Then Terang had the big home run in the 7th inning. That tied it at 3. And then what a moment we get in the 8th inning on Monday. Now, we talked about Joey Ortiz when they called up Cooper Pratt. And even though he is really struggling right now, which you expect from a 21-year-old who's never had a major league at-bat until 2 weeks ago. He looks great defensively. I mean, Cooper Pratt is exactly what we thought he would be so far. He is really good defensively, and he is very up and down. He was up a little bit in the initial at-bats before anybody had really film on him or found holes in his game, and the last week or week and a half has not been good for Cooper Pratt at the plate. But now he's going to be the guy. He's got the 8-year deal. I'm not saying Joey Ortiz is not going to end up at shortstop for at least a couple of games, especially if Pratt continues to struggle with the bat. But that is his job now. That you gave him an 8-year, $51 million deal. And we talked about on a podcast or two ago about Joey Ortiz and how when you go back to 2 years ago when Willie was still here, hey, Willie, name that TV show, Hey, Willie. And he was the shortstop. They had Ortiz. They got him in the Corbin Burns deal. He played third base. He was great. Sensational defender at third base. He hit 240, 245, hit 11 home runs, knocked in 60 runs. Really promising. And I think we all were optimistic as he moved to shortstop once Willie moved on to San Francisco heading into last year. And he just struggled offensively to begin the year, kind of got it going late. He struggled so far this year, and they call it Cooper Pratt. I wondered, though, if the move to third base, where he's going to play the primary part of his playing time now, splitting time with David Hamilton, I almost wondered if easing the burden of being the guy at shortstop every day, if moving him back to third, maybe he rediscovers something like what we saw 2 years ago. We haven't fully seen that, but he had a good series, and it all started with his 2-run home run. You're tied at 3, bottom of the 8th inning, runner on second, 2 down, and Joey at the plate, because of course he is. He's always at the plate when big moments come up, it seems like. But this time he came through. I felt like Clark Griswold. Where's my call? Where's my Lane Grindle? Oh, hold on. Before we do that, I just had to play you real quick the Spanish call of that free kick for Team USA.
Carrera de Tillman. Ahí va Tillman. Goal!
Electric. How is he still going? The lung capacity on that guy. I had a couple of different calls lined up. I forgot we had that one saved. So little quick soccer interlude. This is unbelievable. That's 20 seconds he's saying goal. How is this possible? What is the lung capacity on this guy? The thing about that guy, too, is, it's like, what was that golfer, the Spanish golfer, Jose Maria Olazabal, who was always ripping darts? You know that guy's ripping like a pack of Marb Reds during the game, too. They should just have that be the play-by-play. On the national Fox Sports broadcast, I don't know what the hell's going on in soccer anyway. I may as well not know what they're saying in the commentary, but for moments like that, this is way better than the Fox call last night, the English version, the American version. Preposterous. So anyway, here's the Lane Grindle call of the Joey O. I think this is the entire at bat. Actually, there we go.
1 ball and 1 strike to count. Runner at second is Frelick. He's there with 2 outs. A 3-3 ball game, bottom of the 8th inning. The 1-1 and a fly ball to center, hit well. Friedel back at the track, at the wall. Joey goes deep. A 2-run shot. Ortiz answers the call in the 8th, and the Brewers lead it 5-3.
What a moment! Crowd's going up. Joey, Joey, Joey. I was stunned. If I woke up tomorrow with my head sewn to the carpet, I wouldn't be as surprised as I am now. That's what I would have said on the call.
There is no one in that dugout that deserved it more, that the fans, that the players wanted it more for than Joey Ortiz.
Really cool moment. And I put on the blog on Tuesday, then it must have been, Somebody, the center field camera guy, got a close-up of Joey as he makes contact and he's breaking out of the box for first base. And you can just see, I don't want to say desperation, but kind of. There's this desperation in his eye. I compared it in the blog to when my wife and I are out to eat and you put an order in and you're starting to feel like, God, it's been 10 minutes. Are we going to get our food? And every time that kitchen door opens, like your eyes light up and you realize it's not yours. Oh, okay, somebody got the sizzling fajitas too. Damn it. Should have gotten those. But every time that kitchen door opens, that swings open, you think that, oh, it's your food and it's not. That was the desperation in Joey Ortiz's eyes. And then you can read his lips like Costanza. They said sweep together. You can read, he goes, bleeping, go ball, yeah! And he kind of clenches his fist and flexes around first base. It was just this very authentic release of emotion for a guy that knows he's struggling. And we talked about it, too, on the same podcast, I think, when Cooper Pratt got called up. He knows. He saw Cooper Pratt sign that contract. He knows that that's the guy at shortstop, and that's his position, and he's going to have to probably figure something else out. And I'm sure after Pratt signed that extension the first game of the year, Ortiz has been pressing, trying to make things happen, trying to hold on to his spot. And it just kind of felt like that all welled up on that hit. And he's just willing that thing over the center field wall, ends up hitting off of the wall. But the close-up of him saying, bleep and go ball, go ball. And then as he's rounding first, he goes, yeah, and he clenches his arms together. And then as he rounds second, he goes, bleep, just the F-bomb. But, you know, we've all had that moment of finally succeeding at something or whatever, and you just, you just give that one, only I didn't say fudge, like that release of, my God, I finally got something to go my way. It was a really cool moment for Joey. I'm rooting for him. We all are. I mean, by all accounts, he's the consummate teammate. He's a really good guy off the field. It just, he can't hit. If you could just, it's the same. It's like, did we talk about, I forget if we talked about it on the podcast or on the air, when they had Craig Yoho up last week and he was so bad in the 8th inning in that game in Cincy that they ultimately won. But Pat Murphy had just this long 2-paragraph diatribe about how Craig Yoho's fastball he can't locate, his changeup is very hittable, the book is out on him, he's going to have to make some adjustments. Like, he went on this 2-paragraph rant about all of the reasons that Craig Yoho struggles at the major league level, even though he's been good in the minor leagues. And then at the end, it's almost like Murphy realized, like, I've got to say something nice here. So there's this pause, and then he goes, hell of a guy, though. I mean, should he be a baseball player? Maybe not, but hell of a guy. Hell of a guy. It's kind of the same thing with Joey Ortiz. Really good defender, great teammate, consummate professional, can't hit. Just can't hit in a game where you'd like for him to be able to hit. And he did. He did hit there. 2-run bomb, put the Brewers in front 5-3. And then McGill nailed it down. McGill was great all week and has been great all week. Another save last night. The guy is absolutely rolling. It does seem insane to me. I guess we all kind of get caught up in these early season narratives. When I look back, and I'm sure we podcasted about it, this was in mid-April. So in mid-April, Trevor McGill had 2 bad appearances back-to-back. You would have thought, I expected him to have had an entire bad month, because when I think back to the conversations that were happening, like this, he doesn't have it anymore, the velo's not there, he can't close games, we're worried about the back end of the bullpen. I expected to look back at those game logs and just see a really awful 2-week stretch. He had 2 bad outings. I mean, that's it. And because they happened early in the year, and because he's a closer, and one of them was in a tie game late, and one of them, I think, was also... No, one was where they had the lead, and one was in a tie game. And when you're in that high-profile position where you're trying to nail down a win, and your team is likely an out or 2 away from a win, and it gets snatched away from them, those kind of blow-ups always seem to resonate more with fans because you were so close to a win. But when I was looking back at his game log, because I thought, God, he's been really good now for about a month, and he has. He had a 1.8 ERA in the month of May. He had a 1.64 ERA in the month of June. So then I thought, God, May he must have been awful. He had a 7 ERA, but it was 2. When you're a relief pitcher and you're only throwing an inning every time you're out there, you give up 7 runs, and that's what he gave up. 7 runs in back-to-back appearances, Friday, April 10th, and Tuesday, April 14th. And after that Tuesday, April 14th game, you would have thought everybody's DFA him. I mean, there were real conversations among Brewer bots, I think among real fans, about releasing Trevor McGill, a guy who was an all-star last year until he got hurt, a guy who threw up that scoreless inning in the first inning of Game 5 of the NLDS. Get rid of him. Really, he doesn't have it anymore. 2 bad appearances. That's all he had. 7 runs in 2 appearances. That blew up his ERA to 14. And as a relief pitcher, again, if you're only appearing for an inning every time you're out there. It takes a while to whittle that ERA down when it's at 14.4 where it was after that game where he gave up 4 runs or 3 runs against the Blue Jays and they lost in extras. But he's got the ERA overall now down to 3.27. He has had 6 consecutive saves in a row. He's 12 of 14 on saves this year. It just feels like he is kind of back. Now, the velo last night was still in that 97, 98 range, so we're not seeing consistently the 9900s that you want to see from him. And as we've talked about on these episodes, and he has talked about, his fastball becomes much more hittable at 98 as compared to 99 or 100. 97, 98 is not the same. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a difference, but it is. The difference, though, for McGill is he is landing that knuckle curve, and he was not doing that at all. So when the book is out on you that this guy is a 2-pitch pitcher, and it's like Craig Yoho, and he can't land the off speed, and then you're just sitting on a fastball that's not as high velocity as it used to be. That's why he was getting crushed. But he is landing that knuckle curve again. And if you land that for strikes, then you put that in their head. You put that in the hitter's head. There's that little bit of doubt that you can't just sit on the 97, 98 mile an hour fastball. That's been the big difference maker for McGill in the past couple of weeks. But he's been outstanding. Yeah, I looked at his game log this morning and I thought, God, he must have been so bad in the month of May or month of April that people were calling for him to be cut. 2 bad appearances. 2 bad appearances out of like 30 appearances this year. So you win 5-3 on Monday behind the big hit by Joey O. Then Joey O had another nice game, a 2-hit game on Tuesday with a couple of runs knocked in. Making the start on Tuesday, Brandon Sprout, pretty good. 5 1/3, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Because they're in this stretch of having no days off until the All-Star break, they tried to squeeze a little bit too much out of him maybe. He had 5 innings of 1-run ball. He was knocking on the door of 100 pitches, but understandable. They had a lead. And I would say understandable in this stretch of games where you're just playing every day and they've got a doubleheader next week and there's no days off until July 13th. If you can squeeze an extra inning out of a guy and save your bullpen a little bit, they're going to try to do that. So they brought him back out for the 6th inning. He gave up back-to-back doubles, but then he got a strikeout. Then they pulled him. And after that, Chad Patrick was able to strand the runner that was on. So 5 1/3, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. His month of June ends up looking pretty good. And if you take the 1 bad inning out of the start 2 starts ago where he had the cramp, remember he had 9 up, 9 down, and then he kind of puked on himself in the 4th inning. Then he had the cramp and left the game. Now, I know you can't take out the worst appearance and then spin it any way you want. Traditionally, I don't love making that argument of, well, if you take his worst game, it's like we talk about with Mike McCarthy, where everybody always said, well, if you take his Super Bowl away, what has the guy done? Well, yeah. I mean, I guess if you take anybody's greatest accomplishment off their resume, things are going to look pretty mediocre. So in general, I don't like the argument of if you take the worst appearance out of all of his June starts, those numbers are pretty good. The numbers are pretty good anyway. In June, he has 2 wins. The team went 4-1 when he pitched, but he has 2 wins. And he had a 3.4 ERA in the month of June. That's with the bad start 2 starts ago. If you take that out, his ERA is hovering around 2 in the month of June. I know we've been over this a million times, but let me say it one more time. He does remind me of 2019 Corbin Burns, and I think you're starting to see a little bit of a corner turned. I'm not willing to pot commit to this being a really good guy for the rest of the year, but when you go back now in the month of June, he had the decent start in Colorado, really good start in Vegas in tough conditions. Then he had the bad one against the Guardians, 1 bad inning, 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts against the Reds last week, and 5 1/3 and 2 runs with 7 strikeouts this week. It does feel like now, we were a month ago when I saw Brandon Sproat's name coming up on the probable pitching list. I thought, oh, God, how are you going to survive that start? I am starting now, when I look at the Brewers schedule and I see Brandon Sproat's name out there, I think to myself, okay, I think we have a shot here. It feels like his confidence is growing. He is trusting his stuff more. He is trusting his catchers more, and he's getting deeper into games. Now, the Brewers broke that game open in the 4th inning, just a classic Brewer inning, death by paper cuts. 6 singles, 10 men sent to the plate, nothing hit hard. Sal Frelick RBI single, Ortiz a 2 RBI single, Churrio RBI single. Then you got some power late. Jake Bauers, I think Rake is a borderline all-star. We're going to find out. Solo shot his 15th of the year. Churrio went yard. He capped an excellent month of June. PCA is going to be the player of the month in the NL in the month of June, unfortunately. I think Churrio's probably top 2 or 3. PCA, I reluctantly have to admit, if you look at his numbers in the month of June, he's putting up literally Babe Ruth-esque numbers, where he's hitting 360, I think, with 9 or 10 home runs. Churrio hit 10 home runs in the month. His OPS is over 1,000. He hit 320. In any other month, if somebody doesn't go absolutely ballistic the way PCA did, the blue-haired kid, as Pat Murphy would call him. I think Chourio probably is your player of the month in the NL. He's not going to be able to hurdle over the numbers that Pete Crow-Armstrong put up, but he is on the short list. He had a fabulous month of June, and he put an exclamation point. I would put an exclamation point here and here. And he did that on, what day was that? Tuesday, the final day of the month of June with that solo shot. 2 more hits that night. And the Brewers take it 7-2. Who took it home for the bullpen? They didn't have to use their A bullpen. Patrick looked good. Koenig looked good. That's another piece that you're just getting back. Jared Koenig, maybe we didn't talk about him enough, or I don't know, maybe sports radio in the state in general didn't talk about him enough. When you talk about how used this bullpen is, like we talk about Ashby has been used a ton, and Uribe and McGill, these guys are getting used a lot. One guy that has been so reliably a great arm in the bullpen that you've not had for the majority of the year is Jared Koenig. And, he got hurt at the beginning of the year, and we knew that. But I'm not sure we gave it the proper credit it deserved, that you did not have this high-leverage lefty, because it feels like Ashby's in every game. Koenig is now starting to get his feet under him, and that should ease the workload a bit on Aaron Ashby when you talk about having to go to a leverage lefty. Look at the last 2 years of Koenig in Milwaukee. In 24, he pitched in 55 games, a 2.47 ERA. Last year, he pitched in 72 games. That's unbelievable. He went 6-1 with a 2.86 ERA. These are really good numbers for a middle relief pitcher. So he just is back, pitched in his 5th game on Tuesday, scoreless inning there, has not given up a run so far this year. That is a big arm to get back. And I just don't know. I don't know how many podcasts are spending 2 minutes on Jared Koenig, but I had that in my notes for today that I felt like we needed to spend a little bit of time on Jared Koenig. And the fact that they have him back, and the fact that you now have that leverage lefty back in your arsenal in the bullpen. So he had a scoreless inning in that 7-2 win on Tuesday. Then last night, we got the Garrett Mitchell game. And last night you had, who was starting? Shane Drowan, really good. 5 2/3, 2 runs, 7 strikeouts. Caleb Durbin has turned a big corner in Boston. Caleb Durbin may be in the running for American League Player of the Month for the month of June. He was that good. He hit 340 in the month of June. So the Red Sox are starting to see some ROI on that trade as well, but still, you have Kyle Harrison, who's a borderline all-star, should be an all-star, might not be because of name recognition. You got David Hamilton, who's been fine as a utility player, and Shane Drowan now is starting to kind of look like a guy. 5 2/3, 2 runs, tied a career-high 7 strikeouts. 2-2 game, 3rd inning last night if you watched the game. I don't know what the replay, I don't know what they're looking at. Garrett Mitchell slides into home plate. They call him out. Immediately, Garrett Mitchell says to the dugout, review this. Pat Murphy said postgame they felt like they had a view before they officially went to review that was without a doubt he was safe. Every angle that you saw on the TV broadcast, it was on ESPN last night, so they had extra cameras and extra angles. He looked safe by at least half a second. But I guess you couldn't fully tell, and they talked about this on the TV broadcast. Well, I guess you can't really fully tell, is his toe on home plate or not? It's not an elevated bag, so did he slide? Was his toe hovering over it? It's so clear he's safe, and you just knew the longer the review went, you just knew there's no way this is going to go our way, and it didn't. And they said the call on the field is upheld, and Pat Murphy, with his smashed vertebrae back, this is the first time I think he went onto the field since that back surgery. He was so stymied, and you could hear the crowd get excited when he went out there. He couldn't believe it because, again, like he said, he felt like they had the perfect angle on that where they could tell that he was safe. And in their opinion, it was going to be a very quick review, and he was going to be safe, and that was going to be the go-ahead run. Garrett Mitchell, for his part, said, there's no doubt my toe touched the plate, home plate. I don't know what they were looking at. It is one of those things where baseball, the review system, it's there. We have it. We have the ABS review system. That feels a little more airtight. Like I feel like we've got a good grasp on knowing down to the fraction of an inch or centimeter what's a strike or what's not a strike. But plays like that, I just don't understand. We've been doing replay now for 20 years. It's like one of those things where I know he's safe, you know he's safe, everybody in the crowd knows he's safe, but how do we know? It's one of those things. That's what it seems like they're saying when they go to review. Yeah, he clearly looks safe, and you can tell that, and I can tell that, and the crowd at American Family Field can tell that. But how do we know he's safe? How do we know? You know? It's like, God, what are we doing here? So they call him out, and then it stays 2-2 all the way into the 7th inning. Garrett Mitchell, though, decides to do it himself with the bat. 2 outs and Vaughn on second base. RBI triple scores the go-ahead run. Then Mitchell would score on a wild pitch, take a 4-2 lead. 4-hit night last night for Mitchell, and he was a home run short of the cycle. It really feels like we're turning a corner here with Garrett Mitchell. I hope he can be consistent. I hope he can stay on the field. He has talked about that. He talked about it again last night. This is year 5 of Garrett Mitchell. He's still only 27 years old. And we know the narrative. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. He played 28 games in 22. He played 19 games in 23, 69 games in 24, 25 games last year, a career-high 74 games so far this year, a career-high 227 plate appearances. That beats the 196 he had in 2024. And the more we're seeing him now, I mean, this is a former first-round pick. We always have known he's an elite outfielder. He stays that. He's still that in center field. But now we're starting to see one of the reasons he's a first-round pick out of UCLA, I think in 2020 or 2021. It must have been 2019 or 2020. But you're seeing why that he was one of those guys. He's got the great throwing arm. He's a tremendous center fielder. He can hit. He has some power. He has had 16 doubles now, 6 home runs. The OPS is a tick under 800. I think we're finally seeing him feel comfortable in his own body and trust his body, that he's not going to get hurt, which I'm sure has been a problem, not just physically, but mentally. I can't imagine for Garrett Mitchell or any player that goes through that when you're trying to stay on the field. Like, you know that's your number one Achilles heel. I can't stay on the field. I would imagine psychologically that impacts the way that you open things up maybe, or dive for a ball, or you don't want to separate your shoulder or pull a hamstring. That has to weigh on you over 4 years of injury after injury after injury. It feels like he's finally comfortable and he trusts himself and he trusts his body again. 4-hit night last night. He was tremendous, and he's an everyday guy now. There was some retooling of that, and even at the beginning of the year, little in, little out. Pat Murphy said in the postgame last night, and he said this going into the year, he wasn't sure what to expect from Garrett Mitchell because we just haven't seen him enough. We haven't seen a large enough sample size. A lot of the small sample size stuff has looked good, but we haven't seen the larger sample size to know what he's going to be day in, day out. And Murphy said in the postgame yesterday, I didn't expect this. I did not expect him to be this far along, given how many injuries he's had, and he just looks better and better every night out. And again, in the 8th and 9th inning, Uribe and McGill did allow 1 hit, but struck out a batter to end it. 11 pitches, that was it. He gets saved number 12. And the Brewers get a 4-2 win. So Aaron Ashby, he gets the win last night, the Vulture, and he got the win on Monday. So Aaron Ashby, a middle reliever, he is now just in a random baseball statistical quirk that would get Tim Kirkjian to the eggplant emoji. He is now 12-1 as a relief pitcher. He leads Major League Baseball in wins. Is somebody even at 11? No. Ashby 12, Christopher Sanchez 10, Robleski in LA has 10, Sandy Alcantara has 9. We know Miz has 9, so he's 2 above Sanchez for the Major League lead in wins. This is now tied for a record for the most wins for a relief pitcher before the All-Star break. The record for wins as a relief pitcher is 18 in Major League Baseball history. He is on pace. He is on pace for 23 wins. What is the Brewer record? Last Brewer 20-game winner. The last Brewer 20-game winner was Teddy Higuera in 86. He won 20 games. The record is Mike Caldwell, who won 22 games in 1978. The Brewers haven't had... Now, wins and losses, which we've been over, is not the stat that it used to be as a way to analyze whether a pitcher is having a good or a bad year. And, you know, even before the analytic era we live in, there were a lot of years there for Ben Sheets. I know we talked about 2004, where he was one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball, and his record was 12-14. Records are not the best way to assess whether a pitcher is having a good year or a bad year. So the whole 20-game winner thing, which used to be this huge milestone and revered, it is still to some extent, but the wins and losses are not as closely observed as they used to be. But the Brewers have had some chances to get a 20-game winner, but yeah, they haven't had one since 1986. It would be very ironic if the first 20-game winner since 1986 is a middle relief pitcher in Aaron Ashby. I remember back in 05, maybe, Chris Capuano, like they started him on short rest. He was sitting on 18 wins with a few weeks left. They started him on short rest just to see if they could get him to 20, and he couldn't, and he probably hurt himself. I don't know. Freddie had 17 last year. I think Gallardo had 17 maybe in 2011, so you've had a couple of guys who have had a chance maybe at it late in the year, but it would be very funny to me if Aaron Ashby is the first 20-game winner in Brewer franchise history since we had Teddy Higuera do it in 1986, on pace for 23 wins. Now, one other note before we talk about today's matchup. I don't know if you saw, we talked about this in the teaser. I did not expect Kirk Herbstreit to be so emotionally impacted by this Reds-Brewers series. We all know Kirk Herbstreit for a million years on College Game Day. He's great on that. They added him. He's on the Amazon Prime broadcast now with the Ghost of Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football. I think he does a pretty good job there. I think most people like Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit is apparently a big Cincinnati Reds fan. He must have kind of grown up in that area. So I think it was either after Monday's game or Tuesday's game. I was just scrolling through Twitter, and I saw a tweet from Kirk Herbstreit that was just laden with expletives. And I thought, this can't be the real Kirk Herbstreit. Glass case of emotion. That's where he was.
I didn't understand a one word you said.
So that was where we were at. I had to click on, I thought this has to be a parody account. This has to be a fake. There's no way Kirk Herbstreit at 11 p.m. Eastern time after a Brewers-Reds regular season game, he's like, this is BS that and bleeping that. This can't be him. I mean, this cannot be. And it was 1.7 million followers. This is the guy. And I think the Brewers have just broken the Reds. The Reds have not been bad. They're in last place right now, and they're 4 or 5 games under 500. And they made the playoffs last year, remember? Was it despite a loss they made the playoffs? And they celebrated at American Family Field last game of the year. Didn't mean anything for the Brewers, meant everything to the Reds, and they got swept by the Dodgers, I think, in the first round last year. So they were a playoff team last year under Terry Francona. But I think the Brewers have just broken Reds fans. The Brewers are now 51-20, I think, in the last 71 games against the Reds. So I guess I sort of understand. Even in the doldrums of my Brewer fandom, when you go back to the 90s and the early 2000s and losing 95 games, losing 100 games, and just being beaten by everybody, I don't know that I can think of a stretch like that where you go 20-51 against a division rival, a team you're seeing 10-plus times a year. So I suppose if I were a diehard, I could sort of understand the meltdown. I just didn't expect that. I didn't expect to read that from Kirk Herbstreit. And then one of the things it must have been after Monday's game, because one of the things that he was ranting and raving about was how the Reds don't have any power and they're trying to do things small ball, and that's not the way of baseball anymore. And then the next night was the night the Brewers paper cut him to death with all those singles in the third inning, so that was kind of funny. It was a funny follow. I did not anticipate the breaking of Kirk Herbstreit in this Brewers-Red series, but I suppose that's where we are. So we have the finale this afternoon. What a game we get today, everybody. Ladies and germs, this is going to be fun. I think you never know in baseball. Everything could line up on paper, and this could end up being a 10-8 game, and both guys get blown up. I don't think that'll be the case. So you've got the Miz going for the Brewers, the Cy Young frontrunner. They have scheduled out the rest of his first half, and I will leave it to you to figure out whether or not they left it where he could start the All-Star game. Spoiler alert, they did. So he has this one of the doubleheader games against the Cardinals, and I think that's it. No, he's got one more before that then. So he's got 3 more starts until the All-Star break. ERA leader, Cy Young frontrunner. He is taking on Chase Burns. Chase Burns, which I think we talked about on the Monday podcast, is the Reds' version of The Miz. He is 9-1 coming into today, a 2.36 ERA. He also throws over 100 miles per hour regularly. He is 23 years old. The Miz is 24. These are 2 young aces. Like I said in the teaser, I would set the over-under on 100-mile-per-hour pitches today at 100.5. Over or under. The total pitches over 100 miles per hour. I think I would take the over, given, again, it's a super hot day. My guess is the roof could be closed today because of some pop-up showers. It's been miserably hot, like not many Miz, get it? I actually did make a graphic this week because when I saw the heat index map on some weather station I follow, it was 107, 108, 105, and it popped into my head, oh, this is like the Miz. This is like a Miz fastball, Mother Nature or a Miz fastball. And then I created a graphic with the heat indexes and the Miz's player profile, and we called it the Heat Misery Index with M-I-Z. Not bad, not great, not bad. The Heat Misery Index. But with the roof closed and how hot and humid it has been and that ball whipping up there, I would think we're going to see a lot of gas this afternoon at American Family Field. This could be a 90-minute game this afternoon. It should be a lot of fun. Brewers go for the 4-game sweep, a 110 first pitch. Is that all the Brewers stuff? Churio, great month. Sal Frelick had a great month, too. We didn't maybe mention that. He hit 344. He is looking a lot more like himself. He's getting regular playing time again. Yeah, that batting average, we know he gives you Gold Glove defense, but that batting average was in that 205, 210 range for a long time, and it just looked like he couldn't find it. He was on fire the back half of the month of June as well. So the Brewers go for the 4-game sweep. Yeah, the Cubs have won, so the lead remains 5.5 games in the NL Central. Let's just see where we are overall here. Let's click on League. The Brewers are a game and a half behind the Dodgers, but again, even in the loss column at 31 losses, the Braves have gotten in a rut here. They are 3-7 in their last 10. They're 4.5 back of the Dodgers. The Brewers 3 up on the Braves and a game and a half behind the Dodgers. Even in the loss column, Dodgers have 3 more wins and 3 more games played. The Brewers and Reds 1:10 first pitch this afternoon at American Family Field. I think we got all of the Brewers stuff. Now, do we want to talk? Let's go basketball first, and then we'll just end on the Badger AD news because, I don't know, it didn't get me fired up. I think I even forgot the guy's name. The guy's name. I think it is Sean Eichhorst. Is that it? That's the new Badger AD. We can talk about that. Culver's is a sponsor now for Badger football. That makes sense, right? If you're going to put a patch on something, you knew, what were we, 10 or 15 years ago when those started to pop up on jerseys, Bucks jerseys. I don't think the Packers. Do the Packers have? I think they might. Do they have Bellin on theirs? You knew at some point the NASCAR world of just decking out your car with all these ads. You knew that was going to make its way to the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, all of them. But that's a really on brand. I mean, that is a perfectly Wisconsin brand. Culver's, Quick Trip, Kohl's Cash. That would have all been all things I think that would have been acceptable to put on a Badger jersey. That would make sense. The blue Culver's with the red looks kind of neat, I think. I didn't expect to like it, but I do. I also saw a ripple effect of that is the Marquette fans in the state who hate Wisconsin, just like Wisconsin hates Marquette. I root for them both. I'm Rob Lowe with the NFL hat when it comes to Marquette college athletics and Badger college athletics. But those two, if you went to either one, really hate each other. So Marquette fans saw that, and then there are Marquette alumni and former Marquette players that are hashtag boycott Culver's. Okay, more for me. I mean, that seems like you're shooting yourself in the foot there. Cut off my ear to spite my face or whatever it is? That's not it. But you know what I mean. It's one of those things where I can understand a hatred for another fan base, but to not eat Culver's, not to get a Butterburger as a way to take a shot at the Badgers? Okay, good for you. Well, that was happening too. We'll talk about Eichhorst a little bit here at the end. We will talk about the NBA, though. Before we get into the Bucks, 2 big things. Number one is kind of Bucks related. It's the ripple effect of Giannis not going to Boston. First, I want to talk about LeBron James real quick. There was a lot of stuff that happened as free agency got underway this week. So LeBron has been in LA now for 8 years. I didn't realize he had been there that long. And he's one of those weird superstars where, yeah, I think we all get at this point one guy teams like we talked about with Giannis, the Tim Duncans in San Antonio, the Kobe's in LA's, the Dirks in Dallas. That just doesn't really exist anymore. That's a real rarity. It always was, but it is more now. Guys end up on different teams. But LeBron is a very unique superstar in that he was in Cleveland, then he went to Miami, then he went back to Cleveland, then he's in LA. And presumably he is going to be on another new team. Well, he will be. Now, could it be a team he's already played on? Sure. But I guess he informed the Lakers that he is not playing there, but he is playing another season in 26-27. I think the Lakers fully guaranteed Bronny Jr.'s contract right before he did that. So it's just kind of a savvy move by Bron. I call him Bron. And he is not playing in L.A. And they won the bubble title, whatever. So he's won titles everywhere he's been. 2 in Miami, 1 in Cleveland, the second time around, 1 in L.A. And he's going to play at 41 years old. He averaged just short of 27 points per game at 41 years old, or 40 years old last year. Say what you want about LeBron. And Michael, MJ is my GOAT. I don't think that's a stretch. That's always going to be the debate, right? Is it LeBron or MJ? And I had some texters on the B93 morning show, and I brought that up when we talked about this on whatever day that was, Wednesday. And they said Kobe's better, Kareem's better than LeBron. So if you want to put somebody in the middle of MJ and LeBron in that debate, that's fine. That's your prerogative. To me, it's MJ 1, LeBron 2. I mean, the things that he has done, it's been incredible. 3 titles. He's never going to have the thing that MJ has is that he's 6-0. It's like the Montana. Every time Montana got to the Super Bowl, he won. Every time MJ got to the finals, he won. And then when you put in the marketing that he did and the shoes and the cultural impact, I mean, I just think MJ he's the guy. He's the greatest of all time. And I would put LeBron number 2. But yeah, you could put Kareem in there. You could argue Wilt if you want to do that. You could argue Magic. You could argue a lot of people that you want to throw in between there. That's fine. Kobe, whatever. But that would be my 1A, 1B, Jordan and LeBron. It is astounding to me, though, that LeBron at 41, and he's going to be 42 at some point next year, he is averaging just short of 27 points per game. Remember when we were kids, if you're my age, remember when we were young bucks? Remember when Brett Favre turned 34? And we all thought, I don't even know what the year was. And we all thought, my God, he's basically dead. I mean, it was just like, in that era, guys, when they got to their early to mid-30s, you thought, this guy's got a year or two left. It's just crazy to me. And it's not just NBA and it's not just LeBron. Tom Brady did it too, where he played till he was, 43, 44? Saying that in the 90s or any era prior to this one would have blown people away. Like the idea that a quarterback could play until he's 44 in 1996, you would have laughed him out of the room. And the fact that LeBron is not only playing, but is still a really high-level player. Look, he's not the MVP he used to be. And, some of the all-star stuff, maybe that's just him getting grandfathered in there. And not that the numbers aren't great. Could somebody else take that spot? Maybe. But he is having a massive impact on games at 41. That just seems wild to me when I think back to my era growing up watching sports where, oh my God, this guy turned 35 years old. This is it. I can't believe he's still playing now. 41 years old, averaging 27 points per game. I feel like there are 3 destinations for him, and this is not a hot take by any stretch. Everybody has this take. The 3 places to me, I know the rumor is Golden State. That's the betting favorite, where it's going to be, what was the movie? What the hell was the name of the movie with Sly Stallone and Schwarzenegger movie? Not Escape Plan. What was it? Were they all the old guys team up? Sly Stallone. All right. We're going to learn this together. This isn't good. This isn't good radio. This isn't good podcasting. The Expendables. That's what this would be. The Expendables. Where it's aging Steph Curry. It's aging Draymond, who opted out, but I think he would opt in if LeBron came. LeBron, they just signed Kristaps Porzingis. It's all of these guys, which on paper, if they actually played, I think they could probably find a way to cobble together 45, 50 wins, make the playoffs, and then scare a team in the playoffs. But if you put that starting 5 out there, if that's your starting 5, over under 10.5 games that all of those guys are on the floor together between injuries and load management. So that's a spot. And then the other 2, Cleveland you could go back to, because this has to be, right? Whatever 2-year contract or 1-year contract he signs here, this has to be the final stop. It would be appropriate to come back to Cleveland a 3rd time, but to come back to the hometown, that is not a bad team. They were in the second round. They could have made a case. They could have made, or were they they were in the finals. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals. And per their head coach, Kenny Atkinson, they won the analytic battle. They lost in 5, but they won the analytic battle. So hang that banner. But they were in the Eastern Conference Finals, so it's not like he would be going back to Cleveland for a farewell tour where they're going to win 35 games. They're not a good team. That's a pretty good team. And James Harden, say what you want about him, but he's going to be back there. They have Evan Mobley. They got a lot of good young talent. And I guess LeBron has said that money is not going to be a deciding factor. We'll see how true that is. But if he goes there and the veteran minimum or something in that range, $10 million a year, whatever, like the Aaron Rodgers contract in Pittsburgh last year, I think that makes sense to me narrative-wise, and he's going to a team that probably has a chance to make a run in a wide-open Eastern Conference, even with the defending champion Knicks, who are already losing players in free agency. Like we talked about when we talked about the title window for Giannis, you're already seeing those guys chipped away from that Knicks team because they can't afford them. That's the way the salary cap structure is set up now, so they're just going to continue to be parity. That would make sense to me, and then I do think there's a chance. I think there's a chance he goes back to Miami. And they've got nothing right now. Norman Powell, so they have Giannis. They don't have nothing. They have Giannis and they have Bam. But remember how many times we talked about if Giannis goes to Miami, do they really have a better team than the Bucks do now with all the assets they got from Miami? Would he really be in a better spot to win a title, which he claims is his number one motivating factor, even higher than loyalty to a region or to a team? His loyalty is to winning, man. I'm loyal to winning. That's the only thing I'm loyal to. I'm going to get bitter. I can feel it coming. I know we did the whole podcast where I still love you. I love you, Giannis. I love you. I love you, Mickey. I love you. And we were so grateful for the 13 years he gave us and the decade run of relevance and the Christmas Day games and the primetime features and winning the title and being in the playoffs and winning those games. I can already feel myself turning into a bitter ex-girlfriend. I can feel it happening. I might steer into it. I may just fully steer into it. But that is the whole thing, he said. I want to compete for titles. Okay. You go to Miami, they had to give up a crap load to get him, a lot of talent to get him. And then the only other, now there's a lot of time between now and the beginning of the year, but the only other significant piece that's on that roster, or was on that roster, is Norman Powell. Norman Powell was an all-star last year, 20-point-per-game scorer, former Bucks draft pick. And they traded, I think, on draft night and should have kept. And you're seeing that a lot now in recent John Horst drafting history. Sandro Mamukalishvili just signed a 4-year, $50 million deal. They cut bait on him too early. They cut bait on Sam Merrill too early. Maybe he isn't that bad of a drafter. You know, we talk about John Horst being a bad drafter. I think the problem is they just traded all of his draft picks within a year or two. Sam Merrill turned into a good player. Mamukalishvili turned into a good player. I mean, he's had some actual picks that have had impact on other teams. But Norman Powell left for Chicago. So the only other all-star caliber player on that roster currently when Giannis went there is Norman, but he's gone. So anyway, I could see, because they do have some money now with Powell being gone, I could see LeBron maybe going back to Miami where he won 2 titles. Remember, he had that infamous The Decision on national TV where he left Cleveland and then he went to Miami and they had the big not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4 titles, that whole thing with Wade and Bosh. And they did. They went to 4 finals. They won 2, came close to winning 3. Could he go back there to team up with Giannis? I could see it. I think there's a chance that happens. I think there's a chance we have LeBron and Giannis and Bam as a trio in Miami. I don't know. That makes them better, clearly. I'm not going to be that stupid, but I still don't know. Yeah, in the East, maybe that does make you a contender. If LeBron went to Miami and he's healthy all year and Giannis is healthy all year and Bam's healthy all year, if those are the 3 and you find some veteran parts like Middleton or whatever to put around him, I could see that team maybe winning 50 games and then being a top 3 or 4 team in the East. But as presently constituted now, there's a chance. I texted my buddies this. When you look now at the Bucks roster construction and all the good young talent they have, and you look at where Miami is at right now, if you gave me reasonable odds going into the year that would say, like, let's say you gave me plus 200 odds, 2-1, or even 150, even if you gave me 1.5-1, if I could make a prop bet that the Bucks finish with a better record than the Heat in the upcoming year, if you gave me plus 150, plus 200, somewhere in there, I think I'd take that. I think I would. I kind of like, the Bucks have to make moves. We're going to talk about that in a second. They just got too many guys on their roster right now. There's just too many players. They're going to have to do something. They've got almost 20 players under contract. But there are a lot of options. There's a lot of upside. There are some proven players. Taylor Jenkins, I have a world of faith in. Now, we talked about when they hired Jenkins. I think if Giannis is staying, he's a great hire. I think if Giannis is leaving, he's a great hire, probably an even better hire, because now Taylor Jenkins, this is his team. There's no doubt. This is no longer Giannis's team. This is now Taylor Jenkins' team, and they paid him a boatload of money, which they should have, and he's got a long-term deal. I just like him as the coach and all of this random talent you have now and all these good young players who might be on the ascent. If you gave me plus 175 that the Bucks will finish with more wins than Miami next year, I might take that. I might take it. Miami has a lot of time to get better, and maybe they do add LeBron or they do something big like that, or there's a big splash of the offing that I'm not aware of, but I really like the options the Bucks have right now, and they feel all of a sudden on a team, a franchise that was not deep at all. Now it feels like they're 3 or 4 deep at every position, and you may have too much talent at every position. Yeah, I'm going to be a bitter ex-girlfriend. It's right there, isn't it? But we'll see. Those, to me, are the 3 for LeBron, where he could end up Golden State, Miami, or Cleveland. Now, the other big NBA news yesterday, give John Horst this credit. Now, we said in the return episode of what the Bucks got back for Giannis, we talked about the Giannis trade and what they got back from Miami. Remember, we said, I think they did pretty damn good when you consider the market wasn't as robust as they thought it was going to be. It was only Miami's offer. Then Boston got in the mix, and Boston being in the mix forced Miami to add to their offer, where you got Yakachunas, where you probably weren't going to get that guy if it was only the Miami offer. So when you consider that most of the league knew that Giannis was not going to sign the contract extension, and when you consider, I guess it sounds like Giannis nixed 4 other teams that maybe would have had an offer, and he only wanted to go to either Boston or Miami. So think about that. You've got this superstar talent who is not going to sign an extension with you. He only wants to go to 2 destinations. You are not in a good negotiating spot there if you're John Horst. And he got a lot of stuff for a guy that's not in a good spot. But a part of the reason that he got a good return from Miami is that out of nowhere, Boston threw their name into the ring to try to get Giannis, and their trade revolved around Jaylen Brown. Now, we talked about that when that offer was on the table. Second-team All-NBA, 29-year-old guard, 28-point-per-game scorer, Finals MVP in 2024. A lot to like, but he is not a guy that you build a franchise around. I don't think he's a central figure on a title team. And I just like the amount of draft picks and the amount of options you got back from Miami. If you got Jaylen Brown, it was Jaylen Brown and a first-round pick this year, late 20s, first-round pick next year, likely in the late 20s. If it's Tatum and Giannis in Boston, they're going to win a ton of games. That's going to be a late first-round pick. And that was it. Jaylen Brown, this year's first, next year's first, maybe a second in 2035. But that was all there was. Now, there was the thinking you could reroute Jaylen Brown and get more draft capital. But after yesterday's trade, it doesn't look like there's that big of a market for Jaylen Brown. They end up having to trade Jaylen Brown because they dangled him, and that burned that bridge. And for as good as Brown is, he is, like a lot of athletes, can be a little touchy, can be a little emotional. And I can understand, that team wasn't expected to do anything this year. They win 56 games. He's a second-team All-NBAer. He's in the MVP conversation. He carried them. This was supposed to be a transition year waiting for Tatum to come back. He carried them to 56 wins and a 2 seed. So I sort of understand where Jaylen Brown is saying, I just carried this damn franchise on my back to 56 wins, and you're dangling me in trades this offseason? What the hell? And I just don't think they felt like that they could put a salve on that and make things all better, even though if they could have done that, you come back next year with Brown and Tatum fully healthy and all the parts around them, that's a top 3 team. That might be another top 2 team in the East again. Might be a number 1 seed in the East. But they clearly felt like by dangling Brown, they could not heal that wound, and they had to trade him, and they traded him to the Sixers, and all they got back was Paul George and a couple of first-round picks and a couple of second-round picks. Woof. So say what you want about John Horst and some of the decisions over the years, but the fact that he was able to get Boston in the bidding for Giannis, that forced Miami to up their bid. And then it also drove this division into the Celtics where you had to split up Brown and Tatum. Whereas if Horst doesn't get Boston into that bidding, or it isn't so public, then maybe they're able to dangle him, pull him back, and then nobody's the wiser, and they just go into next year with Tatum and Brown as their 1 and 2, like they have for the past 4 or 5 years. And they won a title like that 2 years ago. But I do think John Horst deserves some credit for the amount he got back for Giannis in a non-leverage negotiating position. And then also the ripple effect of the fact that he drives this divide into Boston's franchise and makes Bill Simmons mad. I can't wait for the Bill Simmons podcast to drop. I am going to have Schadenfreude. Is that it? Where you savor somebody else falling apart? I cannot wait. The Bill Simmons podcast listeners are on the edge of their seat waiting for Bill Simmons to drop that podcast today. He's got to come out sometime, boys, because they got nothing. The Celtics went from a top 2 or 3 team in the East with Tatum and Brown to being maybe a 7 or an 8 seed in the playoffs. Now, maybe there's a longer con there, and maybe there's more that they can do, but that was an awful trade. Paul George, 36-year-old Paul George for 29-year-old Jaylen Brown and a couple of first-round picks. Now, you look at Philly. They've got now Jaylen Brown. They've got Tyrese Maxey, one of the great young point guards. That's their backcourt. That's the best backcourt in the league, I think, scoring-wise, Maxey and Brown. VJ Edgecombe, the young rookie. Now, can Joel Embiid stay on the floor? Who the heck knows? Probably not. But that is a team that has a lot of scoring talent. I mean, that is the best scoring backcourt in the NBA, Jaylen Brown and Tyrese Maxey now in Philly. And that's another thing, if you're a Boston fan, it's not just that you didn't get much for Jaylen Brown and you had to give him up. He goes to Philly, the hated rival. So tip of the cap to John Horst for just meddling enough there to get a bigger return from Miami and to drive this wedge between Jaylen Brown and the Celtics. Well played, John Horst. Hear, hear, hip, hip. So otherwise, some Bucks news. They signed Ousmane Dieng. Now, he was a restricted free agent. They do not tender him a contract. It was an interesting Sportscast week because on Wednesday's Sportscast, we talked about the fact that they did not tender him a contract, so then he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So he's free to sign anywhere. And then less than 24 hours later, they signed him to a 3-year deal. I like this deal. 3 years, $17.5 million. The third year is a team option, not a player option. So if this doesn't work out, you can cut bait after 2 years. Like we talked about when they got Ousmane Dieng at the trade deadline, he's the former number 11 overall pick in 22. He couldn't find any playing time in OKC because of how loaded they are. He's 6'10", and he's 23 years old, and it looks like he can shoot. Those guys are not there. That's not a garden variety NBA player. Now, does he develop and continue to get better, or does he not? We're going to find out. But he was pretty good getting playing time for the Bucks last year. He averaged 11 points and 6 rebounds per game. He was strong at the end of the year in games that didn't really matter, but he showed some shooting touch. He can pass. He needs to get bigger, and he has to get more physical and be a better rebounder and a better defender and move his feet quicker. But again, he's only 23 years old. So at 3 years, $17.5 million, that is a pittance in the NBA to kind of add another guy that now we have this 23-year-old 6'10 forward we can have in the mix. The other move they made yesterday is they signed their second-round pick from last year. Where is my jug dish?
Can I jug dish?
Poop jug.
Can I jug dish?
So last year they had one pick in the second round. They draft Bogle Yub Markovich, boob jug. And he was in the summer league last year, 19 years old, not good. Not good, just looked overwhelmed. He looked a little like Giannis did in that first year where he just didn't quite have his feet under him. The game was moving very quickly. So he was not great in the summer league, so they send him back to the Adriatic League, the Serbian league. Now, we discussed, I think when they drafted him, and we maybe discussed this on the last podcast, the team that he plays for in the Adriatic League, Team Megabasket, that is the team that Nikola Jokic played for before he became a second-round pick in the NBA and now a three-time MVP. Am I saying Bogle Markovich is going to eventually become an NBA MVP? Yes. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. But just to give you some background, because when you throw things out, like he won the MVP in that league last year. So the natural follow-up, if you don't follow basketball closely, is, well, how good is that league? How good is the Adriatic Basketball Association? Well, Nikola Jokic developed there, so that's not nothing. That's one of the greatest players in NBA history developed in that league. So Markovich goes back there, and he won the MVP in that league last year. He signed his contract in Milwaukee yesterday. And you can tell he put on a ton of muscle, 20, 30 pounds of muscle. Like he was this rail-thin 6'10", which you would expect, 19-year-old guy. He's starting to look a little more filled out, put on some muscle, more aggressive at the rim. It's a 4-year, $9.5 million deal. It's a standard second-round rookie contract. I don't know how you go wrong there. Just see what you have. And he'll likely be in the summer league again this year. Maybe he takes a big step forward. That gets started in a week, I believe. There's a couple of different versions of it now in California and Vegas. I'm not sure where the Bucks are parceling their teams out to, but I would think he'll be on that roster. It's just another guy. And he doesn't turn 21. He turns 21 next week. So you've just got this confluence of 20, 21, 22-year-old guards with upside, 21, 22, 23-year-old forwards with upside. Kalel Ware, the center they got back in the Giannis deal, 22 years old. It is kind of fun. Like, I'm not happy Giannis is gone. I think I would still prefer Giannis to be here. But there is this reset, it feels like, for Bucks fans right now, and this optimism of, we got a lot of stuff, and it kind of feels like we're having fun. You know what I mean? Kind of feels like we're not weighed down by the expectations of a title and trying to make Giannis happy and keep him here. There is a certain reset button that feels like it's been hit among Bucks fans. As bummed as we are that Giannis is gone, and we would have loved for him to be a one-team player his whole career and find a way to win another title here and all that good stuff, there is a little Summer of George going on right now. Just a little bit, where you look at this roster and you just kind of wonder, like, what can this team be? I think I actually saved one of these tweets about who is all on this roster. This is the roster. They're going to have to make moves. But at point guard, Ryan Rollins, Yakachunas, and Kevin Porter Jr. Shooting guard, Tyler Hero, A.J. Green, Braden Burry's the 10th overall pick. Small forward, Jaime Jaquez, Torian Prince, Nate Ament they got in the draft, Ousmane Dieng. Power forward, Kyle Kuzma. I'd love to move off Kyle Kuzma. Markovich and Pete Nance. Center, Miles Turner, Kalel Ware, Jericho Sims. That's a lot of talent. That's a lot of good young talent, and you've got some depth there. I am very curious to see the moves they make to break that roster down, what they do with those, if they can acquire picks or whatever they do. You're going to have to unload some of that. You can't go into the year with all of those guys under contract. But when I look at that roster breakdown, I think, God, you got a lot of good young talent here, man. This team, this Bucks team right now, is better than the team last year with Giannis already. They went, 32-50 last year, and Giannis played half the year and they had injuries. If everybody's healthy on the roster I just read to you, I think that is a team that can win 35 to 40 games. I think they have that potential. And unless they pick up a 2027 first-round pick, if that's the return coming back for one of these guys, fine. But in the new anti-tanking world, it does not make sense to tank anymore. It does not make sense to go out there and purposefully lose games and try to get the number one overall pick. That's not the world we live in. And the Bucks don't have their own 2027 pick anyway. So for those thinking this is going to be a really long rebuild, I mean, maybe it will be in terms of being a title contender, but there is no advantage to the Bucks going into next year and not trying to win because they don't have their own pick. If you have a terrible year next year, that pick is going to somebody else in 2027. So this team is going to try to win games next year, and they're going to try to be a playoff team, and I just think that's the way the roster is coming together. And based on the fact that you don't have a first-round pick in 27, it is it is advantageous for you to go out there and try to win as many games as you can. This is not going to be a team like the 2013 team that wins 15 games and is miserable all year. That's not what we're looking at. So I just think the roster is interesting, and then you add in signing Dieng and signing Markovic to that deal this week. All right, real quick, let's talk about, we can talk about Malik Beasley another time. That was another Bucs storyline of Malik. When Malik Beasley was in Milwaukee, he was betting on games, player props. I mean, he is screwed. He is. The text messages that came out this week between him and some of his buddies and bookies and all, he is in a world of trouble, Malik Beasley. We'll talk more about that maybe on the Monday podcast. I want to read you this quick email, and then I want to just touch on Sean Eichhorst. I got this email, and there's no way to figure this out. I'm sad to say. I tried to this morning. This is such a sharp email, though. This is from our buddy Mike in Sheboygan. Mike emailed me 2 days ago and said, the beginning of the email says, bear with me, which I love, right? I'm in. If you say bear with me and we're about to go down a rabbit hole, I am in. He said, John, bear with me. Is Adrian Griffin going to go down in history as the coach with the best winning percentage that was A, hired as the head coach, B, spent a year or less with that team, and C, never was a head coach again? What a question. There's just no way to figure this out. And the parameters he put on it, I don't know how we will get research on that. I tried to Google this in so many different ways. There's just no list of that because it's a very specific parameter, 3 parameters he put on it. But it's a really good question. They fired Adrian Griffin. If you read that Jimmo article, there was basically a coup. I mean, it was obvious from day one that Adrian Griffin was not head coaching material, which is on Giannis. I mean, he's the guy who advocated for Griffin. But when Terry Stotts quit before the year, I mean, it was obvious this guy was not the guy. So Mike is saying that if you look in the history of professional sports, NBA head coaches, baseball head coaches, NFL head coaches, hockey head coaches, whatever, so we'll throw everything in there. If you look back in the history of sports, so this eliminates the interim head coach part of it because he put the parameter of this person had to be hired as that team's head coach. You don't just get the job as an interim. You do well. They don't hire you. There's a lot of coaches like that where the head guy gets fired. This guy takes over. He's pretty good, but then he doesn't end up getting the job and he's an assistant somewhere else the next year and ends up with maybe a decent winning percentage as a head coach. I think that list is much longer. But the parameters that Mike put on it, hired to be the head coach, which Adrian Griffin was. We are hiring you as the next head coach. You're not an interim. You're not an assistant coach that took over a job. We are hiring you as our next head coach. Spent a year or less. He spent 44 games, so a little better than half a year, and then was never a head coach again, and he won't be. Adrian Griffin, I'm sad to say for him, I hope he saved his money he got from the Bucs contract, and I do think at some point, maybe he already is an assistant somewhere. He'll be an assistant somewhere, I'm sure, but he's never going to be a head coach again. He can't have what he had happen in Milwaukee. He's never going to get a shot again. So those 3 parameters. So Adrian Griffin in his tenure in Milwaukee went 31-13. That's like a .650 winning percentage. That has to be, right? That has to be the best winning percentage for a head coach who fits those 3 things that Mike was talking about. But when I read through that email, it really made me think, and I thought, he's got to be. 31-13. How many coaches get fired for going 31-13 and the team just revolts against them and he's a new coach? It's not a guy that's been around and he's worn on you for years and years and years. I thought that was a really good email from Mike. And real quick, let's talk about Sean Eichhorst. So now we have Luke Fickle, and we have Eichhorst.
Not Lois Einhorn. She's Ray Fickle. She's a man.
Ace Ventura. I don't know if you could get away with that today.
Not Lois Einhorn. She's Ray Fickle.
Fickle is Eichhorst.
She's a man.
So Sean Eichhorst is the new AD at Madison. I don't know what to make of it. Twitter seems unhappy. Twitter is always unhappy. He does seem a little milquetoast to me, just the look of him. He kind of looks like Paul Christ. He's the most Paul Christ of the Barry Alvarezes. Does that make sense? He's the Paul Christ of Barry Alvarezes. He just looks like he's going to be a plain guy. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That could be a good thing for a university looking for some stability right now. That might not be a bad thing. He is a Wisconsin native. He was the UW Whitewater AD in the late 90s, and then he was Barry's deputy AD, I think from 2006 to 2011. So he is very familiar with Madison. Then he was the athletic director at Miami, huge university, and Nebraska, huge university. He was fired from Nebraska, and a lot of Nebraska fans were taking victory laps on Twitter at Badger fans' expense yesterday because I guess they didn't like him and they didn't like what he did as the AD there. So he has, since then, he's been the deputy AD at Texas. So he has been involved in some pretty big programs. Say what you want about the successes or failures at Miami and Nebraska, but those are pretty big universities. Deputy AD in Madison, head AD in Nebraska, Miami, and deputy AD at Texas. That's a pretty good resume. He's 58 years old. And I guess I'm not going to hold the Nebraska stuff against him or Miami even right now because we live in a different world. When you look at resumes in the pre-NIL transfer portal era, that's like looking at a resume pre-industrial revolution. Like, what have you done for me in the last 4 or 5 years? You know what I mean? It's a totally different landscape in college athletics. So, yeah, maybe it didn't go well in Nebraska 10 years ago or more, or Miami 15 years ago. But what can you do in this new era of NIL and transfer portal? I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire about things that happened 15 years ago in college sports because that's not college sports anymore. But I will say it kind of went over like a wet fart on Twitter. He just doesn't look like a guy that, like, I think I texted my buddies. You know, some guys like Dan Campbell, they make you want to run through a brick wall. Just Sean Eichhorst look kind of makes me want to run through single-ply toilet paper. It just doesn't get me going, doesn't get my juices going. Again, that doesn't mean anything. He could be a great AD, go boo at a bar. And clearly Barry still has some influence in this program because he was Barry's deputy AD. I can't imagine the Godfather didn't have something to do with this hiring or some input there, or at least a letter of recommendation for Sean Eichhorst. But Eichhorst is the new AD in Madison. That'll do it for us here on your Thursday morning. We'll come back after it on Monday. We'll recap the Brewer weekend, any Bucks news over the weekend, maybe some Miami Heat news. I don't know. We're going to see a lot of player movement going to happen here in the next week or so. Next week, the Giannis trade becomes official, too. I did have somebody say, is it weird that Giannis hasn't posted a goodbye yet to Bucks fans? And I think it is. Maybe he is waiting for this to get to the official date. I don't know why he would have to do that, but it's like when Nate Ament put on the Heat hat at the draft last Tuesday, even though everybody knows he's going to Milwaukee, and they already had him at an introductory press conference in Milwaukee. I do think it's a little odd that we haven't had the big page article in the sports section or a post on Instagram thanking Milwaukee, thanking Bucks fans. We just haven't had that yet. Maybe he's waiting until July 6th. But we'll talk a little bit about that over the weekend as well. Have a happy, safe 4th. We'll chat with you then.